Hi everyone, this is Dane Dormio, and today I'd like to talk to you about the concept of patterns and postures in Qigong, as well as the idea of families of patterns and postures. There's two fundamental types of activities in Qigong. There's stationary Qigong and there's moving Qigong. Patterns refer to movements that have are usually simple repetitive movements, and they refer to moving Qigong. So we're moving our body while we're doing Qigong. Postures refer to stationary positions. So basically a posture is any pattern that's sort of frozen or paused at any point and held stationary. So there are many different types of patterns and postures in Qigong, and there's lots of different schools that teach many different variations, and there are different effects that are created by different types of patterns and postures. The most important concept for starting to explore this territory, though, is rather than focusing on the differences and the distinctions, focusing on the similarity and what are the commonalities and the common principles underlying all patterns and postures. So what is common to all things in Qigong are the non-exertion principle and the pleasure principle and the three regulations. So whatever pattern or posture we're using, we're engaging the non-exertion principle and the three regulations. We're maintaining composure. We're regulating body, breath, and mind. And by extension, we're also engaging the six qualities: structure, equilibrium, fluidity, body unity, sensitivity, and spontaneity. So the primary thing with any patterns and postures, any type of Qigong, is to be mindful always of the three regulations, the six qualities, and the non-exertion principle. Now, to go one layer deeper, patterns consist of cycles, and we've talked in other videos about the idea of cycles and synchronicity, and how a pattern is built up of multiple cycles. One cycle will always be the breath, because the breath is always there. The breath moving in and out is one cycle. And then other cycles will be movement of the body up and down, or rotating, or shifting side to side, or movement of individual joints, shoulders, or elbows, or wrists. And these different patterns, or different cycles, combine to form different patterns. It's essentially a finite number of ways that the human body can move biomechanically. Any given joint has three degrees of freedom, or degrees of motion, ways it can possibly move. Essentially three dimensions, and we have so many joints, and so the human body can move in essentially a finite number of ways. That is a combination of all of these different cycles and how they're put together. So a pattern is really defined by the cycles that make it up. If we are engaged in any pattern, we can pause that pattern at any point, and that becomes a posture. And of course, in any posture, we're engaging the three regulations and the six qualities. So we have structure, we have equilibrium, we have body unity, we have sensitivity, we also have spontaneity, and we have fluidity, although they're not as obvious if we're not moving. But essentially, much like a mathematical line is a construction made up of an infinite number of points, a pattern is a sequence of postures. So there's a principle that's commonly cited in Tai Chi, that any part of the movement could be a strike. In other words, if you take a particular movement or a technique from a Tai Chi form, any part of that movement could be a strike. So to illustrate, in a typical traditional martial arts technique has a specific point where this is a punch and this is the point in space and time where the strike occurs. However, a Tai Chi movement might look something like this, and any point along this trajectory, this could be a horizontal elbow strike, this could be a downwards elbow strike, this could be an elbow strike this way, this could be a palm strike here, a palm strike here, a palm strike here, a palm strike here, an elbow strike here. Any part of the trajectory could be the place where power is issued. In other words, it's not concentrated at a particular spot in the movement. So that's just an illustration, a more specific illustration of this general principle that we could take a pattern, a movement, and pause it at any point, and that could be a posture, a place where we're able to exhibit structure, equilibrium, and potentially issue strength if we wanted to, which is what we're particularly interested in the context of martial Qigong. So at any position we're able to issue force in any direction is one way this principle manifests. So there are four what I call the main four, or the basic four families of patterns in martial energetics, and these I use the term again, families of patterns, and what that means is that if you take an individual pattern, there are sort of variations of it, what you might call topologically equivalent variations, where it's essentially the same in overall features, but has a slightly different shape. So any one pattern is not really a single fixed pattern, as in this style we do it exactly this way and it must be exactly like this, but it's a general shape which can be sort of a general form which can be shaped and so to speak expressed in a multitude of variations. And so all of those what might look like different patterns are actually related together in one family of patterns. And so there are four of these basic families of patterns that are the basic four that are the foundation for Qigong practice in martial energetics. And these basic four provide a wide and broad covering of all the various advantages and benefits of all Qigong patterns. So there are certainly more Qigong patterns that you can learn. There are certainly more postures that you can learn, and the more broadly you learn Qigong, the better. Learn as much Qigong as you can from as many different teachers as you can. That's my recommended strategy. But also recognize that while you can learn more broadly, you can also learn more deeply. And while learning more broadly consists of learning more different types of patterns and postures, learning more deeply means learning in more detail. And by deepening your practice, you increase the benefit that you can get from any particular set of patterns or postures, or from any one pattern or posture that you're working with. And learning more deeply increases the benefits that you get from any Qigong that you do, from any patterns and postures that you do. So just learning more broadly gives you more tools to work with, but it doesn't necessarily increase your proficiency with those tools, whereas learning more deeply, deepening your sensitivity, your awareness, your understanding of the principles allows you to get more benefit from whatever particular set of tools you happen to work with. So I before we go into detail on the specific patterns and postures, I just want to make sure that you have this sort of conceptual, intellectual understanding of what patterns and postures are, that Qigong is either moving or stationary. If we're moving, we're engaging in patterns or free-form movement, but patterns are repetitive types of movements that are made up of cycles that are linked together in various ways. And a posture is just a pattern that's paused at any point and held stationary. And we can vary any one pattern to generate a family of patterns that are all related, have the same basic features. And of the many hundreds of thousands of patterns and postures and different types of Qigong that are out there, the most important thing is not how much Qigong you know, but how deeply you are able to go with your practice, with whatever practice you're doing. Even if you just had one pattern and one posture to work with for the rest of your life, you could still pursue that very, very deeply and use that one pattern or posture as your vehicle for exploring the depth of Qigong all by itself in a sort of a self-contained way. So I hope that this information is useful to you. I hope it's something that you can incorporate in your practice to kind of simplify what Qigong is, from rather than trying to memorize 1,000 or 10,000 different details, looking at it from a perspective of principle and analyzing it down to what the commonalities are, what the universal principles are, and using that conceptual foundation as a basis for pursuing your own personal exploration of the space of Qigong exercises. So thank you for joining me today, and thank you for joining me on this lifelong mind-body mastery journey. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.